welcome to another episode of Wisdom Chat, talking all things money and well-being. I'm Phil Holdsworth, founder of Aurum Gold, which specialises in money psychology and financial well-being, and I'm also your host for this podcast. I wanted to do something different for this episode, so rather than have a guest, I thought I would talk to you about money psychology, often the missing component to financial well-being. We're all wired differently. Our passions, our fears, our dreams are different. And when we hear the word money, we all have unique thoughts and emotions too. Understanding the psychology of money helps us be aware of those thoughts, emotions, and behaviours. So what is money psychology? It's the study of attitudes and behaviours with money. Success with money isn't about knowledge, IQ, or how good you are at maths, although these do help. It's about behaviour, and everyone is prone to certain behaviours over others. Once you become aware of those behaviours, you can harness the power of your own mind, your thoughts and your will, and you can literally change your life. Whether we're talking about money or life, knowing yourself is a huge factor in creating meaningful change. If we aren't aware of which strengths, weaknesses, perceptions and behaviours we bring to the table, we'll never be able to lead ourselves to improve and reach our financial goals. Behavioural economists generally say that lacking skills or information only accounts for 10 to 20% of our actions. The other 80 to 90% of the time, our choices are influenced by emotional triggers. And if you want to get to the root of why you behave the way you do, why you spend, save, use debt, put off investing, and more, you've got to learn about how the psychology of money affects you. To understand what I'm talking about, let's have a look at some patterns of behaviour and a couple of personal stories. Why do some people undermine their goals every time they see a bargain? And it makes it harder to achieve their aspirations in life when dealing with their money. You know what I'm talking about. Those bargains that you see in supermarkets, buy two for the price of one, and you're thinking you're getting a great deal, but some of those bargains you really do have to be careful with because they're not always the bargain that you think they are. And not only that, how often do we find ourselves in a position where we're going to food shopping and we're hungry? How different our basket is to when we're not hungry. Think about that one. They're convinced they've saved money when in actual fact they spent money they didn't intend to or plan to. In other words, it's actually cut across any plans that they made regarding their finances. Or perhaps you're one of those who don't have any plans. Why do some people always feel anxious when they try to take control of their money? Just sitting down to compile a budget or check their bank balance brings them out in cold sweats. They say, yes, I know I need to manage my money better, but in their heads they are saying, but. Why is it that some don't seem to have a care in the world when it comes to spending, yet others struggle to pick up the barbell when it's their turn? Or they've got deep pockets and short arms, as we might say. Why do some people who appear to be good with money, because they're good savers, are always looking for the cheapest price and don't appear to be enjoying life? Whatever amount of money they feel would bring them peace of mind seems to elude them at every turn, because it's never enough. They see families struggling but won't help, tell you they can't afford it, and when they have more than enough sat in the bank, their partner has a dream of going on a specific holiday or attending a top event, but all they ever hear is, we can't afford it. And when the truth comes to light, they have so much money they don't need to worry about it. But they still have an iron grip on money as if they are afraid of something. Let me just tell you a couple of stories just to further illustrate what I'm talking about here. I'll call this character Spontaneous Gina. It's a real person Obviously, Gina's not her real name. And her story represents how habits and attitudes are the result of many different influences. Her spending habits reflects the attitude that money is easily available and will be provided because she deserves it. Her habit is to spend often and buy the best. A quick look at Gina's family reveals that her grandmother had been very poor. She never had a doll of her own and always wore hand-me-down clothes. She struggled financially while raising her own children and never had money for any extras. Over time, however, life got much easier and she had more disposable income. Then her only granddaughter Gina was born, and Grandma vowed that Gina would never want for anything. Gina was raised hearing that she was special, deserved the best, and should never settle for less. Gina's mother was delighted that her mother showed so much interest in Gina and helped her obtain things she and her husband could not afford. Both grandmother and mother saw their own dreams coming true when they indulged Gina. Unfortunately, Grandma died before Gina finished college, and the steady stream of extra money and gifts stopped. Gina had never thought about money and wasn't concerned about it. She just assumed it would be there when she needed it. She continued to make spending decisions the same way she had always done. She shopped as a routine pastime, bought the best, and treated herself to expensive cosmetics and hair treatments. Her mother was very proud of how beautiful Gina always looked, and Gina was never concerned about the mounting pile of unpaid bills. She didn't take her debt seriously until she applied for her dream job and didn't get it. The company had run a credit check on her. Some companies do that, and it's one of those things just to be mindful of. When they saw her poor rating, they assumed if she was that irresponsible about paying her debts and being financially responsible, she was probably irresponsible in other ways and would not be a good candidate. What we needed to do with Gina was to really address some of the beliefs that she had grown up with. And it wasn't wrong for her grandmother and mother and parents to say how special she was and that she deserved the best and had to settle for nothing less. But they needed to balance that with an understanding of how money works, how we earn it, how we can save or spend or give, and some of the principles that sit behind that, and what's needed to ensure a continuous flow of finances coming into our bank accounts. And so we started to work on her understanding of the world of money and why it was so important to know exactly what was coming in, what was going out, and to manage that according to her particular needs, requirements, and obligations. Equally at the same time, though, it was important for her to understand what her own personal values are, not necessarily her grandmother and her mother's values, what was important to her, and to make sure that within her managing her finances that she allowed for this, allowed the ability to outwork some of her values. And if it was to still buy nice things, but to do that within her means. Equally at the same time, it was about what was important for the future, and certainly paying off her debt was a big sort of central point, really, in order to build that long-term financial resilience. And so within her spending plans, as we put it, she allowed for these and was able to start to take back control of her finances, but from a point of view of understanding that yes, she's still special, deserves the best. However, that her financial decisions were based around what she was capable of, what she had the means for, rather than just, I suppose, willy-nilly spending. So that's Gina's story, and Gina's doing very well. And Now I'm going to introduce you to Impulsive Charlotte. Again, not her real name and a real person. Her values were about buying new things because they made her feel good, and putting a smile on other people's faces also made her feel good. In other words, she'd be the kind of person that you would like to go on a night out with, and she would pick up the bill or want to pick up the bill. However, this wasn't a good plan for her long term, because it was putting her into a very difficult position. Now, her background was she's a professional lady, works in a professional occupation, dealing with clients' money of several million, and working in the sort of legal profession. Among her and her friends, she earned the highest amount, and yet she was the one most often in debt, and her friends weren't. Her friends would be there going on holiday, and she wouldn't be able to afford it. And so she came to us saying, can we help her? And one of the things that we started to do was to look at what her values and her beliefs are, what her money type is. And what I mean by money type is how she emotionally relates to money, and what are all those beliefs, those attitudes that sit behind it, and where did they come from? What are those that are empowering and those that are disempowering? And being able to separate the two out, and those that are disempowering, how can we rewrite the narrative so that she could have a better perspective on things? One of the things that Impulsive Charlotte would do would be to go into a department store and see something that she really liked and want to buy it there and then. And in our conversation, I asked her, could she not, rather than buy it there and then, walk past it and perhaps give it a week before she goes back and buys the item? And if she felt the same about the item and it was there, then by all means go back and buy it, as long as it was within her means. And she said to me, I couldn't possibly do that. I said, why not? And she said, well, what if it's not there? So I asked her then, if it wasn't there, what difference would that make to her life? And it suddenly occurred to her that it would make no difference whatsoever. So we talked about things that were a priority, but also we talked about those things where she could be more impulsive, and we talked about strategies for avoiding that impulsiveness. But also we talked about some of the questions that she could ask herself prior to purchasing something that she hadn't planned to purchase. Do I need this? Will this make a difference to my life? If I don't have it, would I miss it? Would it be a difficult situation? And the outcome for our Impulsive Charlotte was the fact that she started to do that as a way of life, that she wouldn't buy things straight away, that she would go away and think about it. And she found in some occasions she didn't need to. She didn't need to go back and purchase an item or spend that money that she hadn't planned to spend. And she became much more deliberate in how she used her finances, to the point where she felt much more confident and in control of her finances and her peace of mind when she'd sit down and start to manage her finances on a day-to-day basis. Yes, she was a professional person, and you would assume that she was doing that anyway, but it's interesting, isn't it, that less than 50% of the working population have any kind of financial plan. And I'll mention this as well while I'm at it. There was a chief financial officer of a large company that was managing their finances and managing them well, managing their budgets, their accounts, and had people working for them. And so they were very much finger on the pulse, knew exactly what was happening within the company, where it was at financially. But when they went home, didn't do the same with their own finances. And not only that, started to feel very guilty about the fact that they weren't doing that with their own finances and felt guilty that they shouldn't be in this position where they've not got a handle on the finances at home. So much so that they wouldn't talk to their own children about finances, which is the very opposite of what's really needed, because our next generations need to know about finances. They need to know how to manage money, how to understand themselves and their relationship with money, and how to put things in place that will keep them safe, have a plan, and reduce any stress and anxiety around finances as they go through their lives. When you think about financial well-being, or the term financial well-being, what's the first thing that comes to mind in your thinking? And just stop for a moment and think about that. Financial well-being, what does it mean to you? The Money and Pension Service say that financial well-being is about feeling secure and in control of your finances, both now and in the future. It's knowing that you can pay the bills today, can deal with the unexpected, and are on track for a healthy financial future. The Initiative for Financial Wellbeing says that financial well-being is how people feel about the control they have over their financial future and their relationship with money. It's about focusing on the things that make their life enjoyable and meaningful, both now and in retirement. Do you know, most organisations will focus solely on external areas concerning money. And the two statements I've just given you, I do agree with. But if at the end of the day, all we tend to focus on is the external matters and not really on what influences or is the biggest influencer of our money, and that's you and me, if we don't understand you and me, then we are setting ourselves up for a fall at some point in time, and not necessarily understanding why. Not understanding why you have made certain choices, why you have certain regrets, why did you feel guilty, or whatever it may be. And it's really important that we understand that true financial well-being will take you on a journey that will show you the building blocks. It includes your money psychology as well as the practicalities of managing or improving the management of your money. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this matter, whether you agree or disagree. What have been yours and others whose lives you come into contact with experiences in terms of managing, saving, spending, and giving your money? Are you achieving your own financial goals and future aspirations? If not, then why? Do you make plans and stick to them, or do those plans often get sabotaged along the way? What do you think causes that? Do you feel guilty when you spend money on yourself? Does it trigger memories of your upbringing with the lessons you observed or heard? Do you obsessively check your money several times a day but still feel anxious? What are you afraid of? I had a client who very much had her finger on the pulse of money coming in, money going out, very much in control of finances. And when I asked her how often she checked her finances, eventually we got right down to several times a day. And I asked her the question, what are you afraid of? And she just burst into tears and said, I am so stressed about my finances. And it turned out that as a little girl, she was often told by an aunt that you must save, you must always save. And when she grew up into adulthood, that same voice was there in her mind whenever she was spending money. And she never felt at ease spending money on herself. She would always feel guilty or ashamed because she'd feel like she'd let her aunt down. And it caused a great anxiety. And it's things like this that it's important to unpick, because it can be the very stumbling block that sabotages your ability to achieve your financial goals and future aspirations. Understanding how you feel, think about and handle money helps you better manage your personal finances. enhance your relationships, and improve your well-being. It's about feeling confident, in control, and having peace of mind when dealing with your money. And a great book that I will open this area even more to you is Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money. I can strongly recommend this to you, and you can get it on most Waterstones, Amazon, online. You can get it either in Kindle version or on Audible, so you can listen to it, or you can get a hard copy. And it's definitely worth reading if you want to understand a bit more about the psychology of money and why it's important to be more self-aware when dealing with your finances. If any of what I have spoken about resonates with you, please do get in touch. I can be reached through our website, that's www.orumgoldltd.co.uk, so that's all one word. Or you can message me through my LinkedIn page. So if you search for Phil Holdsworth, Phil with 2 L's, Holdsworth, it'll come up with Phil Orumgold Holdsworth. And please do message me. I would love to hear from you, your thoughts on this matter. This is an area where within the finance industry, there's a growing awareness, and it will continue to grow until people realise that even in the world of investment management with neurofinances has been an area that's been researched an awful lot, how financial managers make decisions about their client investments. They have looked at what has shaped their own attitudes and habits concerning money and how those have affected their decision making, even for others. So it's definitely a growing subject. I hope you found this rather unusual one interesting, and I'd love, as I say, to hear from you. Any thoughts, whether you agree, disagree, I don't mind either way, but to hear from you would be really good. Thank you very much for listening. This is Phil Holdsworth of Aurum Gold on another episode of Wisdom Chat. Take care, everyone.